All right, hey gentlemen. I hope you can all hear me. Welcome to this evening's Coach Education with Coach Greenslade. Just a couple quick announcements. I just want to make sure everybody can hear me. Yep, should be good to go here. Couple quick announcements. I know I've received a few emails this week and such about where are we with football and when are we going to be able to play again. And I just wanted to kind of give you a quick update that we don't have an update. We know pretty much as you guys know. We try to stay as connected as we can with the Alberta Health Services, with Football Canada, with the federal government. There's so much still up in the air. A lot of communities now have said you're not doing anything until at least June 1st. Some communities have said you're not allowed to rent fields until July 1st. So minor football, we hope to return in July, August maybe, and high school, we hope, fingers crossed, will start on time as per August 16th, September 1st. But no updates yet. We will keep you posted kind of through this forum and through emails and our website and everything. The other thing is Football Canada Mobile. They launched an app last week that hopefully you guys have checked out. Can't see that anyways, but right now they're still in the testing phase and it's free and they're making changes as they go. So if you guys have checked it out and if you have any feedback, please feel free to share. Right now it is still a working document. There is some excellent football at home that you guys could be creating a team and sending it out to your players. And then in season, there's some excellent practice plans. You can integrate it, just like a team snap where all the players are on it. They can see the drills on and off the field. You can connect with your parents, whatever. Footballcanadamobile.com. Check it out. Without further ado, our speaker today, Coach Tyler Greenslade from Harry Ainlay High School. He grew up in Edmonton on the west side, played at St. Francis Xavier, and then went on to play with the U of A Golden Bears. Had a little stint in the CFL, and he's been at Harry Ainlay High School as a teacher and as a football coach and working with Coach Ralph for the last 5 years, including a few provincial titles recently. He's going to be chatting today about their in-season practice planning and also their off-season philosophies. So as I mentioned earlier, kind of on the announcements, let's keep our mics off. You can have your video on, but it's just not needed. You can have your video off as well. We're going to be sharing Coach Greenslade's screen and also going to be having Coach Greenslade's screen on there as soon as I give him permission to do so. Sorry, Tyler. So Tyler, I made you co-host there. No, wrong Tyler. There's a few Tylers. Sorry, guys. All right, so if everybody else wants to just turn their screen off altogether and mute themselves, then we can just focus on Tyler's presentation and Tyler's beautiful mug himself. So are you good to go there, Tyler? You should be now. Yeah. All right,
Good
sorry
to
about
go
that.
here, Taylor.
Yeah, my apologies, buddy. I didn't make you a co-host. So we tested earlier at 6:45 and I messed it up. So it's all yours, sir. Now, guys, if you have any questions, I'll be monitoring the chat. Tyler also has the chat up as well. If you guys have any questions, feel free to write it down. We can interrupt them as we go here. And or text me if you want, if you just want just to send me a private message that I can ask. I'll put my cell phone number up in the chat right now. So Coach Greenslade, it's all yours, sir.
Okay, thanks, Taylor. Hello to everybody that's tuned in, and thanks for spending at least a portion of your evening with me here. I was super excited when Taylor reached out and offered the opportunity to speak. It's quite humbling. I've grown up around football, and I remember trying out for the Football Alberta Senior Bowl a number of years ago, and I've always had the utmost respect for the good work that Tim and Taylor have done. And I tuned in last week to Lafferty gave a presentation on Jason Lafferty from Belrose on some offensive kind of organization, and Dave Deluzio from Notre Dame gave a great one last week as well. So I was joking around with somebody Football Alberta's peddling these things for $10 each, but they could probably go back and sell both of those presentations for 20 or $30 each now. And you know, I took a lot out of both of those presentations, but especially listening to start my video. Sorry, Taylor. Especially listening to Coach Dave down in you know, from Notre Dame and all the success that they've had. You know, it's pretty cool to tune in, and I do really believe we can learn so much from each other. And you know, Jason Lafferty, who coached me once upon a time, kind of alluded to that as well. So super happy to be sharing, and hopefully you can take something out of the presentation tonight. Yeah, we're gonna get started. Somebody's drawn on my screen. What's going on here, Taylor? Okay. Oh. All right, so that was a little bit of my opening message, and the presentation's kind of broken into two different topics, and the off-season considerations might be a little bit more for like high school focus, but I hope that you know, whatever your kind of rank and role is, whether you're doing minor football or high school football, you can take something from the considerations there. And then the in-season practice planning, I you know, everybody's got their different context, and I'll give you a little bit of an idea of where I'm coming from. For those that don't know, Harry Ainley's in Edmonton, Alberta. It's a high school of we're just about at 3,000 kids, so it's a really, really big school. And we actually you know, our school's been open for over 50 years. This is my 5th year at the school, and I'm also the athletic director there, which is a super cool experience. But it's a school with a rich tradition of athletics, and we're super fortunate to have some amazing kids there, which I'm going to talk about in a second. But just so you kind of have a sense of what where I'm coming from, a little bit of background there. So, sorry, I'm just going to pause for a second. Taylor, can you hear me?
I got you, buddy. I don't know where that came from. You might have done that with your pointer or something, or
No,
somebody's
okay.
messing with us. It's all good.
Okay, that's fine. I'll persevere. All right. So as you can see here, everybody, this is just my opinion. And I know that it's funny because Coach DeLuzio brought up the same thing. The two most important parts of any program are its coaches and players. And I know some of our coaches have been watching these Football Alberta presentations. Like they hear it hopefully all the time, that we appreciate all the good work that they do. But if you're looking at how do you build a program, and how do you kind of work through an off season and in season, it starts with volunteer coaches, and I do truly believe that. So I'm really fortunate to work alongside Brock Ralph, and many of you will recognize that name, as he played in the CFL for a long time. Brock and I have worked together for 5 years, and that's kind of the number one topic we always are reviewing and reflecting on, is how do we get the best volunteer coaches that we can. So you know, when I break down kind of what can we do better, and when I was reflecting and creating this presentation, really want to make sure that point is clear. The success of any program is going to be based off of the people that you're surrounding yourself with, which is your coaches and your players. And you know, for me, and when I say for me, really for us, it took time to figure out how we were going to improve, and it took us making mistakes, and we've been able to have, you know, some success more recently, but it came just after a lot of reflection. And you know, I've been doing a lot of reflection this off season, just thinking about how can we improve. And I think it's so important to have that mindset. So we'll talk about some of the things that we do, and maybe it'll spark some ideas for you. I think it's really important to enjoy the process and the journey. You know, I get a tremendous amount of satisfaction out of planning and doing different things. And my coaches would probably laugh at me saying that, but you know, they know from the amount of emails that they get on planning and different things that this is one big part that I enjoy. But I think it's important for kids to hear that as well. and there's a little quote there that I like: you can't change your destination overnight, but you can change your direction. So I think as you continue as in your planning and process, hopefully, it's never too late to implement a new idea or try something new. Okay, so
Oh,
we'll
Tyler,
get into it right
Tyler,
now.
if you want, Tyler, because I know it's probably going to bug you, just
Yeah,
exit out of your presentation mode and then just kind of just go back into it if you want. Oh, it's gone. There you go. No,
we're good.
still there, but whatever.
That's super weird. Maybe I'll try it. Oh, it's on my screen. What is going on? Wow. You can
You were
tell
just
what kind of teacher I would be. Hey, I'd be getting a kid in my class to come and fix this for me right now. But sorry, everybody. I've got no idea what's going on there.
no worries. Yeah, you can continue. You sound good, and other than that, the picture looks great. So continue on, sir.
Hey, I got prompted, Taylor, too, on the video. Is that showing up or no?
Yeah, you're good.
Okay, right on. Can tell I need a haircut, eh? For the little hair I have left. All right, off-season considerations. And just so everybody following along at home is aware, I'm going to share our off-season philosophy kind of at the end of this topic. And I'm just going to present some considerations for you to think about. And again, I know that everybody's coming with a different kind of background. So for us at the high school, we really like the idea of the multi-sport model. And I kind of, have the background of knowing what sports are going on and who the coaches are as athletic director. And that's, a bonus for working in the school, that you have the ability to kind of know what's going on there. I want as many of our guys playing basketball, being on the wrestling team and indoor track. Handball is a little bit later on, closer to the spring. And then, the rugby, track and field season, as we get closer to June there. Now, I really do think it's important to consider that multi-sport model, and I'll talk a little bit more about that later on. But for me, that's kind of where it all starts in the off season, and you'll see some of the different things that we do in a bit. So another obviously consideration: when is your off season started? I remember the first year I started coaching at Ainley, we were out in I don't even think we made we didn't even make provincials. We were done early. So we started off-season stuff in December. I was like rip raring to go. And, I know Brock was kind of looking at me sideways with it. And we started in December, and then you get the big break for Christmas. And then in high school, you get another break in January for exam break. So over time, I kind of figured out, let's start in February. And that's the best time for us to do it. You're probably going to have kids that are, as soon as the season is over, they're going right back to working out and doing things. But our formal, I call it voluntary off-season training, starts in February. And when does it finish? When are you having spring camp right at the start of May? Or are you doing a spring camp in June? I know in Calgary it's a little bit different for when they're allowed to do spring camps. So you got to look at your range of activities and figure it out that way. Another consideration: are you going to be doing testing, like physical testing, running 40s, doing bench press and that type of stuff? We've done every which way. And I think that as we've reflected over time, we do like the testing. And I think it gives kids something to look forward to. And it's kind of a morale booster, and it does hold kids accountable. So when are you going to plan that testing to take place? How many phases of the off season do you have? Do you go maybe February to April, and then do you boot up again in July and August? Now, obviously, there's a season of play in Alberta in high school football that runs, I believe it's May 1st to June 15th or something like that. So obviously you couldn't have any contact with players where you're going through anything in the phase 1 or phase 2, because you wouldn't be in your seasons of play. But I know that we've done stuff where we'll send out workouts that the kids can do on their own in those summer months as we get headed towards camp there. So some considerations, and I've got a few more for sure. So basically, I factor a lot of the off season into when is our spring camp going to start. And again, it's something that we have done probably every which way. in terms of the spring camp. And I know that it's nice to have that flexibility, and we were pretty disappointed, like everybody who's dealing with COVID, when stuff gets taken away that you're used to. You got to kind of reevaluate and figure things out. Spring camp was just canceled for us earlier this week, I guess yesterday. So, we're reevaluating right now on what we want to do. But in a typical year, we're looking at having that spring camp starting probably sometime in May, and obviously finishing before exams start in June. And, when I've looked through how are we going to plan all this stuff, you always want to consider the Football Alberta dates. We've been fortunate to have quite a few kids as a part of that Football Alberta program, and they're typically having a mini camp in June. So that's taken away kids from us before, and you live and learn and make a plan accordingly. Our midget season and how long that lasts for is always a little bit up in the air. Typically it's done at the start of May, and our midget is different than other places in the province. It's not quite as big here as it is in Calgary. But still a consideration that we have to make. Recently in Edmonton, there's been like a flag football league for high school. So trying to figure out what nights that's going to be on. And then I think a huge consideration is what are your grade 9 athletes doing? So we'll always have athletes that are going to be student athletes at Harry Ainley. The following year will be a part of our spring camp, which is fantastic. But we believe it's really important to make sure that if they've committed to, doing track and field at their junior high, that they're attending those events. If they're on a grade 9 flag football team or any of the other sports, that they're committing to that stuff first. You always see kids that really want to be a part of your high school football program, and they're super excited to be attending spring camp. And sometimes you have to talk to kids and say, listen, you only get to be in junior high for a short amount of time, and that time is almost over. But we really believe it's important to stay loyal to those coaches and your teammates that have you spent the last 3 years with. So just some considerations. And I know I'll talk to John Ioannidis. He's our junior high athletics coordinator in Edmonton Public, and he does a good job of kind of walking me through what's coming up and what we got to pay attention to on that front. Okay, so a few more considerations here. This goes back to probably like the most fundamental part of our football program is expectations. And I really believe that having high expectations is so important. So, when I think about that, our in-season expectations are really, really clear to our players. They have to attend class, have to be on time for meetings. And I'll kind of show you some of the stuff that we talk about a little bit later when it comes to practice planning. But our off-season expectations change a little bit. So it's to me really simple. You need to think about what are your expectations going to be in the off-season, and are they the same as your in-season, or are they different? Fitness center setup. How much space do you have? We, like I mentioned before, have a really big high school, and we don't have a ton of space in our fitness center. It is a big space, probably like it's about 2 classroom space with the wall taken down. So it's a decent size, but if you imagine having 30 or 40 kids working out after school, which is when we do our off-season workouts, it fills up pretty quickly. What time are you starting? Are you starting at 3:45? Might you consider doing a rolling start? We have kids that will come work out with us from junior high, and if they have to be there at 3:45, they're probably not going to make it on time, right? So another consideration on that front. What does the supervision look like? We're really fortunate to have 4 in-school coaches now. Two of us do senior and 2 do junior, and we've kind of divvied up the supervision for that. I know when I first started, like Brock and I were doing it together, and there was just 2 of us. So we're fortunate to have a few more helping hands. On top of that, the biggest helping hand of all is one of our coaches, Coach Hogan. He's still in university right now, and working towards becoming a teacher and has a great background of strength and conditioning. So he's kind of taken it upon himself to lead our off-season workouts. And of course, that is such a major thing that probably is the biggest consideration of all. Do you work with athletes, first of all, that are in high school, but do you work in the school that you coach at? And I know that could be a restriction for some people. Next point there is on leadership. And what I mean by leadership is I think the off season is a great time to not only, see your leaders in action, but develop leadership. And I know one of the biggest things that I'll do and when the kids are working out is keep a really close eye on some of the younger guys and maybe sometimes give some of the older players a nudge to help out some of the younger guys and make sure they feel comfortable and that we're doing a good job of kind of building that family atmosphere. So I think it's important time to consider and look at the leadership aspect of your program as well, specifically the players. Touched on the season of play a little bit already. I think most people know, especially at the high school level, like you can't go into the gym and run a skelly or an inside run. There is a season of play that finishes, I think, the night of provincials or the day after, and then starts up again in May, finishes in June, and then, like we're August 16th and we get going again, right? So I know it's different down in Calgary, and I think I mentioned that already, but in Edmonton and a lot of areas, you got to consider the season of play. And I think there's lots of different creative things that you can do, but I'll talk about our philosophy in a bit here, just in terms of what we'd like to see. Speed and agility sessions. I'm going to show a calendar here, and you'll see we do some speed and agility sessions in the gym. I guess it's popping up in a second here, but basically, it's just a way for us to get a little bit of a different movement going on in terms of comparing it to what they've been doing in the weight room. And our Coach Hogan does a great job with the weight room activities, but we want to try to mix in some of that speed and agility stuff if we can as well. And we do that in the morning. Okay, so I'll just talk about a couple of other things here before I talk about our philosophy at Ainley. But in the off season, and this is a great example of it right now, with COVID and all the pandemic restrictions and stuff, I think it's a great time to get as much done in the off season as you can. So you can really focus on the X's and O's and athlete accountability during the season. To me, the better you can know your 45 athletes in the off season, I think that's like your best chance of having success during the season. So I just made a little checklist. I'll go through our fee plan. I'll make sure all the permission forms are done. I'll kind of create a preliminary depth chart for offense, defense, special teams. Book the buses. We'll have some base practice plans that I'm going to show you in a bit here. We do quite a bit of planning when it comes to kind of conversations we're going to have around our character and values. So I'll plan those out. What are we going to talk about in our team meetings? Field bookings for exhibition games. Oftentimes we'll go practice at turf fields just so we can get a little bit better film. And I like getting the kids out of the building and just kind of, okay, we got to get on a bus and go play in Lacombe. We're not going to be just practicing at Ainley every day, right? So just that's our kind of thinking there. I really like to plan ahead and book those exhibition games as soon as I can. So I'll often be trying to contact people around the province in Western Canada and set things up. And obviously that's going to have to happen with quite a bit of lead time. And then what's your defensive, offensive, and special teams installation schedule looking like? So that's a great thing to do. I know a couple of years ago, we were super fortunate to compete in a provincial final in 2018, and we lost 3-2. It was a total heartbreaking loss, as you can imagine, and I was gutted. I remember, not doing any planning for the longest time, and I just wasn't, quite into it, right? And I remember thinking, you know, because it snuck up on me. We got to spring camp and I just hadn't done as much as I usually did. I remember thinking, I'll never do that again, because any of you that are a part of a program know how much work it takes to you know, just be organized, let alone have any small amount of success. Of course, success isn't always winning and losing, but you know what I mean. So I think I'll never do that again, right? Just want to try to plan ahead as much as possible. And I think that if you can find the time to do it and just chip away at tasks, it's something that is well worth it. Okay, so I've talked a little bit about kind of some off-season ideas and considerations, and what you see here is I blocked out all the names, but we take attendance at our off-season lifts, and we have done lifts in the morning. What we found was that after school just worked better, and I think when I reflect on our expectations, we have high expectations in the off season, absolutely, but also we want the players to want it just as much as we do. And if they're going to make the choice that it's not important to them, we're going to take note. We take attendance, and when it comes time to kind of select our teams, then you know, we have the data to back up. Hey, listen, you know, you missed 3 workouts, and the guy you're competing against didn't miss any, and that's something that we can factor in. I'm sure some people are thinking, well, must be nice, right? You've got however many kids trying out for your football team, and I can't make any cuts, right? I don't have enough people. I do get it, and we are at a spot where we are really fortunate to have a lot of interest in kids that want to be involved. But again, that's what works for us. So what we'll do, and you have to understand, we can't make workouts mandatory, but we can track the attendance. So we'll just on any given day here, okay, we'll have Coach Foster looks like he was on Mondays, and he would just be tracking all the way across, okay? So as you can imagine, these 3 kids here, they never showed up. It's going to be a pretty short conversation if they show up for spring camp and we have to make a decision on them, right? And the E must, you know, that's just for excused. So that's just an example of what we do with the attendance, and we would track it every single day. Coach Brock and I'll usually cruise around and just have conversations with kids. If we say, hey, we noticed that you missed, you know, a couple workouts here, what's going on? And we do keep a really close tab on that in our off season. So our off-season workouts, like I mentioned, they will be in our fitness center after school. And the way that we've structured it, and Coach Hogan has really done the lion's share of the work here, is he'll create workouts and share them with the kids. And as you can see on the screen, 3 workouts a week, and 1 of them is supervised. So you might be assigned to Monday. We really are encouraging you to be there every single Monday. We'll do attendance. And then you have to do 2 other workouts on your own. So if you're assigned a workout as an upper body day on Monday, you're expected to do 2 more workouts on your own during that week. Week 1, you should do 2 upper body workouts, and week 2, you would do 2 lower body workouts. So you can see the example there. And, you know, we'll get the screens going. Like, I don't have these GIFs or whatever you call them, but when we have our screen going in the fitness center, just on the TVs, all of these images would be moving, right? So the kids could see, okay, we're going through this. And it's just a quick reference for the kids, which is really handy. And then the coaches that are supervising are able to help out with some of the younger guys or correct form and technique. So that's kind of what we've done for our off-season workouts in terms of the lifts. And I think I've got some calendars here. So as you can see, we'll have a grade 9 information night in January. Then we did kind of a grade 10 and 11 off-season meeting the next day. Exam break, we get into February, we're starting. So this was the first day of semester 2. And we're working all the way through. We'll mix in an 8 a.m. workout, speed and agility in the large gym or the small gym every 2 weeks. And, you know, so for us, the off-season is a great time to get a lot of work done. And I know this is really focused on high school stuff, so I apologize to the minor coaches, but you can see that off-season piece is again a reflection that you just kind of work through. And oh, sorry, I want to go back there. You work through it to me is something that you have to identify. Okay, are you a program that you care about what you're doing 12 months out of the year, or do you care maybe 3 or 4 months? Because there are probably some programs that we're just going to trust the kids to be active, maybe join another sport, work out, and we'll kick it up again in spring camp. And we've made the decision that we'll give kind of that break in December and January, and then we're going to be pretty well full on kind of from February until June. Now, the spring camp consideration, let's just talk about that briefly. We really try to stay out of the way of rugby, and we made a commitment 4 years ago to really push a lot of our kids to play rugby. So I'll come back to this. Taylor wanted me to just talk about social media there, and I will. But we made a big push for rugby, big push for track and field, and I think it's great. I want our kids to be coached by as many different coaches in the building as possible. I really believe in educational athletics, which isn't to take away anything from anything that happens in the community, but I do really value our kids being coached by the coaches in our basketball program and handball and rugby and track and field and wrestling and you name it. So we really push that multi-sport. Now, for us, let's say we've got some kids playing basketball. They're excused from our off-season workouts until basketball is done. And some of the kids will still come to the workouts, but we tell them, listen, if you're playing another sport right now, you're excused. We've got a high-level soccer player on our team, and he was doing soccer after our football season. He was excused. So I think that our expectations in the off-season are a little bit different than in season. And that's kind of what we've committed to. I know that we do this as well. We just want to provide an opportunity for our kids to compete year round. And a part of that is during the off season. We want them to have that competitive mindset of competing with themselves, competing with their, future teammates, maybe competing for a spot. So that's something that we echo all the time. And we just want to try to provide as much information and structure to our off season as possible. So I'm happy to elaborate on those things later on if anybody has those questions. But I'm just going to go back here. Taylor wanted me to talk about social
Tyler,
media.
I'll give you a minute to take a break. A recommendation from Martin there is stop sharing your screen and then come back and share it again. It might get rid of your line. So just hit stop share and then come back. While Tyler's doing that, I wanted him to, if you hit stop share.
Yeah, beauty.
Yep. Okay. I wanted Tyler to talk about social media because as we probably all know, students and players are a lot different than they were maybe when we were younger. Self-promotion is a big thing right now with the kids. And I think Gary Ainley does a great job promoting their program, their teams, but they also do a good job, and many other teams do, of highlighting their players, some of their alumni or some of their current players. And, I would recommend programs, if you're not doing it already, maybe up your social media game a bit and try to highlight some of your players through some highlight tapes or whatever, because kids are different. Players are different. They love that. They eat that stuff up. I'm just looking at Salisbury on your schedule there. They do an awesome job as well. A lot of the top programs do, but if you're not doing it already, get a student involved or get your communications team involved. And I think social media can be a big part of building that program, building that culture, feeding the egos of these kids. And maybe I'm not saying that right, but self-promotion is a big part, but you got to do it right, obviously. And maybe Tyler, you can talk about your program and how you guys do it and what you do. And thanks, Martin. Thanks, Martin, for the tip on the doodling.
Beauty. Thanks, Martin. Taylor, you gotta send them out a swag package for fixing that, man. Hopefully you do.
Sounds good, buddy.
So this is just, again, something, and Taylor kind of covered it there, but we just want to be able to, share a message with as many people as possible and make them aware of opportunities. I think it's important just to show that something's happening, right? And that there's a pulse. And if you don't have something like shared, then maybe kids think maybe nothing's happening at all. And that would be an issue to me. And a big thing that I believe in is just, can we increase participation and see as many kids active as possible? So, we've had fantastic success, I'd like to think, in terms of engaging kids in our building to help out with some of this stuff. And I can obviously answer questions later about it, but all of those images and stuff have been created by kids in our building, which is great to see and get them involved. Okay, so talked a little bit about this already, and the next thing I'd like to talk about is practice planning. So hopefully this feels a little bit more relevant for everybody that's tuning in. It's funny, I think Coach DeLuzio had a couple books listed in his presentation, and one of them was this Urban Meyer one. I just read it a couple months ago, and it's fantastic. I highly recommend it. He's got some really great stuff in there. Like this legacy book is good too, but the thing I really liked about the Urban Meyer one is he's got some really practical examples of how he organized and structured his message for his team. So I think it's great. And then another one is this John Wooden. Everybody knows the great coach John Wooden at UCLA, and some of his stuff, has been around for a really long time. But I found that book to be fantastic. So one thing that I know I have in my office and think about quite often is the 4 P's from John Wooden: plan, prepare, practice, perform. And I feel like I'm stealing a little bit from Coach Dave at Notre Dame there, but we've got a lot of the same ideas. Practice is so important, and I know that everybody in here knows that, but I take a lot of pride in trying to squeeze every minute that we can out of practice and make it as efficient as possible. And it just turns out that we've had a lot of practices the last number of years. So you have to understand this: the practices that you're going to have in August and September are going to be way different than the ones that you have in probably October and November. The practices that you have at a high school where you have 25 kids on the team are going to be way different than the practices you have with 50 kids. Pee-wee, bantam, it's all a little bit different, and I can understand that for sure. But hopefully I'll give you some ideas and things that you can use wherever you're at. So I've got a couple links here that I want to go to, and I'm just going to try to take you through some ideas here and things to consider and some things that we do. Okay, so the first one that we'll do right at the start of August is we'll go into kind of some operational expectations. So hopefully you guys are still following along at home here. We'll go into this slideshow, and it's a mammoth of a slideshow, but we'll talk about what are the expectations of the locker room. Let's make sure everybody's on the same page. Like, do not wear cleats in the school. If your locker is deemed to be unclean, then you'll spend a week with the junior boys. They've got a different kind of space where they change and stuff. So no food or food wrappers in your locker. Just really basic stuff like that. And the reason I'm bringing this up is, like, I think that if you can be organized with all of the little moving pieces ahead of time, it makes a huge difference in increasing efficiency of your practice. Like, I always laugh at this one. We have a hydration station. Don't suck on the hoses, right? Don't let the hoses drag. And, you kind of laugh about it and the boys will chuckle. But seriously, like, you guys know from working with young kids, that's just the stuff that can turn into a headache that's unnecessary. And when I'm looking at how are we going to have the most success on the field as a team, we want to remove as many barriers as possible. So a part of it is just helping the kids out. Kids don't know all of the little things that as a coach, right? And even sometimes assistant coaches that aren't working in the school, they might not know. So we love to have all of our coaches involved in those meetings. I think it's super important to just set the season off with some of that conversation. Next one I'll show you guys, and I'm not going to hit any of the links just because you might not have the audio, but this is an example of, messages that we'll go through at the start of the year. And again, hopefully this all ties into practice planning for you. I think it's super important to have these conversations. So, if I hit the link here, it would be Gino Ariyama. He's the women's basketball coach at the University of Connecticut, had tons of success. He's talking about body language, and it's a great clip.
You can probably hit it. It'll share your computer audio.
Will it work? Okay, let's give it a go.
Yep.
Yeah? Okay, well, let's watch it. It's a good one.
It's harder than it's ever.
Turn it up a bit on your screen.
Because every kid watches TV.
Yep.
And they watch the NBA, or they watch Major League Baseball, or they watch the NFL, whatever sport they watch, WNBA, it doesn't matter. And what they see is people just being really cool. So they think that's how they're going to act. And they haven't even figured out which foot to use as a pivot foot, and they're going to act like they're really good players. You see it all the time. You see it at every AAU tournament. You see it every high school game. So recruiting kids that are like really upbeat and loving life and love the game and have this tremendous appreciation for when their teammates do something well, that's hard. That's hard. It's really hard. So on our team, me, my coaching staff, we put a huge premium on body language. And if your body language is bad, you will never get in the game. Ever. I don't care how good you are. If somebody says, well, you just benched Stewie for, 35 minutes in the Memphis game a couple years ago. Yeah, I did. Oh, that was to motivate her for the South Carolina game the following Monday. No, it wasn't. Stewie was acting like a 12-year-old. So I put her on the bench and said, sit there. It doesn't matter on our team. And the other coaches might say, well, you can do that because you got 3 other, All-Americans. I get that. I understand that. But I'd rather lose than watch kids play the way some kids play. I'd rather lose. And they're allowed to get away with just whatever. And they're always thinking about themselves. Me, 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 me. I didn't score, so why should I be happy? I'm not getting enough minutes. Why should I be happy? That's the world that we live in today, unfortunately. And kids check the scoreboard sometimes because they're going to get yelled at by their parents if they don't score enough points.
Okay, so we'll get out of here. Now, again, I think it's really, really important to share these messages with the kids. And, you guys will agree with this. Like, kids get tired of listening to you talk. I know my kids get tired of listening to me talk for sure. So if you can incorporate, a message from John Calipari, and we'll, there's a couple of different ones here. These are really, really important things to our program. And we talk about them in training camp. We'll reference them over the course of the year. It was cool to see. I've asked some of our former players to do a little alumni message. What do you remember from your time at Harry Ainley? I was really happy to hear a couple of them say, attention to detail. And I distinctly remember sitting in the room with those guys and going through this slide right here in this picture. Okay. Attention to detail. We've got a whole list of them, and I've kind of dressed it up a little bit more for the 2021, but you get the idea. Now, I think that it's a great way to start off your pre-practice meeting. And I know that we've got a Bantam program that kind of shares the same field as us, the Mustangs. They don't have the luxury, unfortunately, of going into a school like we do and sharing a message. But I think that you could do something like it and send it out via a group chat and say, hey guys, this is something we're going to talk about before practice today or after practice today. Just something that we want you to watch this little video. And I don't want to go into the program philosophy, Coach Dave did a great job of that, but this does feed into some of the stuff that is behind the scenes when we plan our practices. Okay, so this will be for many of you who have been around football for a long time. Football is all about routine. I heard some clip from Herm Edwards the other day. Like, football is one of the only sports where you practice way more than you play, and you have to. There's so many moving parts. It's, I think, the greatest game in the world, but in order for everybody to be working, together in concert, it's tough. You have to practice so much, and that's why I think practice is obviously so important. So for us, in-season routine, super important. Day 1, day 2, day 3, they really look the same every week for us, with only a few differences. We've got a good thing going right now, guys, with our pre-practice routines are led by players. And it used to drive me up the wall. Like, I'd come out for practice, and we get, you got a group over here, they're doing, jack all, and you got another group over here, kids are throwing it just looked like a total cluster. That's how I felt. And when Brock and I started working together 5 years ago, we came up with the vision, hey, we want this thing to look as close to a junior team or a university team as possible. And that's how we're going to treat everything. And so our pre-practice was just always in shambles. And so what we decided to do was we put ownership on each unit and say, hey, okay, we're going to give you a schedule of things that you have to do every single day pre-practice. And it's worked out great. So I'm going to bring a little bit more detail to that later. Individual coaches, okay, I'll call them everyday drills, right? I've seen, I was listening to Tom Higgins speak down in Calgary at the coaches clinic down there. He calls them everyday drills. And I think that's a good way to look at it, because I think players need routine. It's really, really easy. Like, the W drill for DBs. If you say the W drill, our players are going to know what it is. I guess probably most players would, but like if Coach Cody and Coach Ed, who do our DBs, say, hey, we're doing the W drill, our guys would know right away. They would know where they got to line up. And I think that's so important. So we want our coaches to have consistent drills. And of course, our coaches have kind of different duties pre-practice, during practice, and post-practice as well. I try to email all of our practice plans out on Sunday or Monday. I don't always get them all out to our coaches at the start of the week, but I try to, just because I think that gives them as much time as possible to be prepared. Okay, so that's some ideas there. And here's our day 1. So I'm going to pull up this image in a second, but what we do is typically we play on Fridays, and then we don't see the kids again until Monday, right? So we'll have film at 7:40 in the morning for the offense and 8:15 for the defense, and we review the previous week's film in unit groups. So that, linebackers and D-line would go together, DBs would go together, and the reason it's at different times is because we'll have a few guys going like two-way, so then they could go to the offensive film and then go to the defensive film. I know this, and those educators that are listening, like, kids have a really tough time for focusing for longer than 15-minute segments. And if they're watching themselves on film, they could probably watch for like 2 hours. So that's why, some of these meetings and things can be a little bit longer. But we use that as a way to kind of chunk our time. And anything longer than 15 minutes, we have to know that we're probably losing some kids' attention. Even 15 minutes is pretty long. Okay, so at 3:45, so the kids will go to school, right? And then 3:45, we'll have a defensive meeting, and we're starting to prep for the opponent. And then the offense will go work out. At 4:20, we'll have a team meeting. We'll just kind of talk about, what's going on for the week. We'll review special teams film. 4:35, then we're flipping, right? The offense is going to meet. The defense is working out. And what we started doing this, everybody is out by 5:20. So they're out of a meeting, they're out of a workout by 5:20. And then we're giving them on field by 5:45. We'll be off by 7. So day 1's kind of a different day for us because it starts earlier in the morning. It finishes at 7 o'clock, and we try to commit to that, but it's pretty jam-packed day. It's based on correcting mistakes, working on fundamentals, and there's not a lot of prep for the next opponent. So one thing that I'll show you in the practice plan here is, I wonder if I can blow this up a bit. Yeah. Is, okay, so this is like what our coaches would get. And I think it's so important to always have a focus. So for day one, our focus would always be, correcting mistakes, fundamentals, whatever it may be. We'll list the meetings here and the pre-practice deal, like I talked about, that the players lead. That'll be explained in the meeting as well. And I'll show you what we show the kids in our pre-practice meetings, because that might help to kind of conceptualize everything for you. So like we'll have our warm up at 6, individual, right? Everybody does that. Then we'll have offensive time. They might just have 5 minutes to go over a couple of mistakes or anything that happened, and we'll have punt going at the same time. So these little acronyms or whatever, okay, those are our coaches. So these two coaches are focused on the protection. Coach Hogan is doing the punt return scout. Coach Cody and Coach Ed are they're watching the gunners for punt. And it's just a quick 5-minute period. That might even just be a little walk-through period for us, jog-through period, okay? Then we get the offense. They get 5 more minutes, so 10 minutes total. And then we'll do a little defensive tackling circuit. And that'll be listed down at the bottom of my practice plan here, so the coaches know ahead of time, okay? So Coach Cody is doing we call it the Buford T, 3 versus 1. And this might just look like code to everybody, but our coaches would know. And once you get coaches that have been around for long enough, they just know, okay, yeah, I'm doing shock and shed or sideline gator. And it's going to be DBs first, and then I'm going to have a D-line group after, okay? Then we'll go into fire, and we want to keep things moving. So you'll notice here, none of the periods are longer than 10 minutes, let alone 15. So fire, we want to see if we can get 10 plays in 5 minutes. Go down with one group, go back with another group. Then we're going to break into a mesh period. So we've got some different drills that we'll do. We call the 1 swingers, and then sideline force out is another one. And then the one-on-ones with the O-line and the D-line. So I know I'm talking a million miles a minute here. The thing that is different for me and different for you is I could tell Coach Cody, yeah, we're doing swingers. You got to get that set up during fire. And Cody knows what to go and get set up, right? I tell Coach Hogan, okay, we're going to do swingers for 5 minutes and then sideline force out. Can you get sideline force out figured out? Hogan knows what it is. Our players know what it is. And everybody's moving to that station, right? So I really think it's important to have a pre-practice meeting every single day and explain to your kids what's going on. Okay. Then we'll have a cardio circuit on Mondays, day 1. The cardio circuit's listed here, and we've broken the kids down into groups as well. Okay. So you can see there's lots of layers of organization here, but it's worth the time because it saves you from, well, we've got 12 kids doing battle ropes and we've got 4 kids doing, core. That's not efficient. We want things to be as efficient and organized as possible. And then at the end, we'll do situations. So it could be 30 seconds left on the clock. You have to get yourself into field goal range, and that could be the situation of the day, right? So that's our day 1 Monday, typically a Monday. And if I go, I don't know if you guys really care for me to explain in as much detail there, all of this stuff, but I'll just kind of work through day 2 and day 3 are really similar for us. Okay. So we don't do anything in the morning. We don't do anything at lunch. Like Brock might have a quarterback meeting at lunch on day 2, but I think it's important. Just let the kids go, do their thing. They want to hang out with their friends and do whatever at lunch. So I think that's important. And we've always really committed to that. I can count in 5 years how many lunchtime meetings I've had, right? It's been very, very few. So we'll start up after school, 3:45. Okay. Offense is getting treatment and taping, defense is meeting, team meeting at 4:05 for 10 minutes. We'll go over the day's plan, the practice plan. We'll go over the special teams depth chart. Maybe show a couple of clips and videos so the kids know what the drills are that we're doing, and then we're rolling. Okay. So everybody's out on the field by 10 to 5. Do our pre-practice deal there. Hopefully you can get some kids involved to be equipment managers. I've had different levels of success with that. I think if you can get some really good kids, maybe kids that didn't quite make your football team to be equipment managers, it can be an absolute game changer. So that's an idea that we started 2 or 3 years ago, and I really like that one. Warm up at 5, we want to be off by 7, and day 2 and day 3 are really similar. But as I just work through here, okay, we're going to have our pre-practice stuff for the kids. They're leading it. And that gives our coaches an opportunity to maybe set up their individual station. Obviously, they can get kids to help them bring equipment wherever they need, but it just is kind of a nice way to let's get the most out of the 10 minutes before practice. You know, I think working on quarterback center exchange is so important, but how often do you work on it specifically in practice? And maybe you don't. Maybe it's something you forget about. Well, it's important. We don't want to forget about it, so we're doing it pre-practice on day 2. So we'll go, individual, then we'll do Oklahoma. And this changes, right? We might do this in September. We might do this in August, but I bet you that we don't very often do it in October, and we probably have never done it in November, right? So you guys know that as the all the factors change as you get closer to the playoffs. Like, obviously you want to protect your athletes' health a little bit more there. And there's lots of factors to consider there that I can talk about too. So you guys can see we're factoring in special teams time. We always want to make sure we're doing some form of tackling every day for our defensive guys. We'll do O inside and D Skelly, and then we'll flip it. We've been a part of teams where you got one quarterback. I remember in 2017 we had one quarterback on the roster, but you can't really do inside and Skelly at the same time if you only have one quarterback. So you have to get a coach is running the inside as the quarterback for the O scout or whatever. Like, you guys probably are well versed in all the limitations and obstacles you have to get around, but it's worth considering. Okay, are we going to have enough guys to run, have linebackers and inside run and have linebackers and Skelly, right? Do we have enough linebackers to do that? Okay, so since Taylor's given me the go ahead to try these links, this is an example. Like in pre-practice, we would show, okay guys, just a reminder, we're doing the bag and ball here, and it's like a Seattle Seahawks one. So they'll just show it here.
Yep, you're good.
Okay, I don't even know what happened now. Oh, it's probably right up here. Okay, so just a quick little 6-second clip. Show that to the guys, and then they're going to be able to go and do the drill rather than me and Coach Hogan going and trying to show the guys the drill. Let's get to the station, get the drill going. We got to have 3 bags and three balls and 3 lines, and away we go, right? We want to get as many reps out of it as possible. If you're stopping practice to talk a ton, I think you're doing a disservice to kids. So I really believe that in some of these circuits, we want to be as organized as possible. And I remember seeing a clip from Nick Saban talking to coaches and stuff. He said, listen, if we haven't talked about the drill in a meeting and we haven't gone through it in pre-practice and talked about it there, and you're spending time explaining the drill during practice, it's not good. Like, none of us are coaching at Alabama or anything, but that one, hit home. I hate seeing coaches in individual spending like 5 minutes talking and then 5 minutes doing something. We only have so many practices in a year. Let's be organized and keep the kids moving and doing all that stuff, especially early in the season. When we get later into the season and we're starting to just have like a little bit, more learning periods and practices are shorter and all that stuff, I'm okay with it. But at the start of the year, I want us to be as organized as possible, and I want kids to kind of know what the plan is there. Okay, so
Another Tyler, another good tool there is you don't have the opportunity for a pre-practice meeting, or if you had a tablet out there and you just quickly showed that drill, or I talked about the Football Canada mobile app, and I don't mean to go back to it, but you can whip that out and before practice, you can easily send it to them so they have it on their smartphones, or you have your smartphone at practice and you show them a 10-second clip of that Seattle Seahawks practice, speed up practice a little bit.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I think that's, like, technology is changing so many things for for everybody now, and don't. I think you got to take advantage of it. I really do. Like, we'll try to film practice as much as we can. And I think if I go back to day 2, like, okay, we try to film practice on day 2 so we can watch it on day 3. And we'll probably have watched quite a bit of our opponent film by that point. We want to see, okay, well, we scripted, Ross Shep's offense, and we went through it on day 2. We filmed it. Okay, so now let's review on day 3 pre-practice. Hey, we screwed up this thing in practice yesterday. Let's make sure we make that correction. So that's something I really do believe in, is it's super important to correct mistakes off film if you can. It's a lot easier. Like, I remember when I was at U of A, like, yeah, they have the resources to film practice, and you've got so much more time with your athletes to watch stuff. It can be challenging to film stuff. We don't have the ability to film every single practice because we don't have the infrastructure, but oftentimes we'll book out Footfield or Clearview or something so we can film practice, right? So I think if you can film practice, you should. I remember the LSU coach, Ed Ogeron, said, hey, if we're filming it, we're watching it. So I think that's important too. Don't just film it and don't watch it. I think filming it is important. One thing we did actually was we had a kid, and he had a drone. We had a drone at the school, so he'll come out and film practice with the drone. And if you got the ability to do that, there's tons of like restrictions and stuff. You got to take a course. So luckily the kid had all that stuff figured out, but it was awesome. And you can get that drone footage, and then so that could be a possibility, and it's worked out great for us so far. Okay. So here's our weekly overview, and I'm sure Taylor's going to share all this stuff with you guys after. So this is an example. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, you'll see here at the top, 2-way offense, 2-way defense. So if we got a guy playing receiver and he's also starting at free safety, well, on day 2 he's going to be doing individual with the receivers, and on day 3 he's going to be doing individual with the defensive backs. And we kind of got away from committing to that all the way this year, but it has worked in the past for us quite well. Okay, jog through. That's on Thursday for us. So we don't really practice on Thursday. That's we're going to go through all of our, we're just in shoulder pads. We're just in our helmets and jerseys doing our jog through. So we wouldn't have really any volunteer coaches at this deal on Thursday. I'm sure my coaches laugh at me. I hate walkthrough. We're not walking around, like, we're jogging through our assignments. And I think the language behind that's important to me. Just like, let's act with purpose and have a plan of what we're doing. It's serious. I say there's only one football out on the field. We don't have guys, screwing around on the sideline. Like, that's and the guys know we've set that expectation and it's serious. And so that's Thursday for us. Friday is game day. Again, as I reflect back on when I first started coaching, I didn't love the bus. I didn't love the attitude on the bus and the body language and this and that. So we'll address that stuff at the start of the year. We'll say, listen, the bus needs to look a certain way. Guys got to be acting a certain way on game day. And it's not to say that everybody's got to be serious. I'm fine with joking around or having fun, but you just got to understand, if somebody likes to be kind of locked in and not bothered, respect that. And that's something we'll talk about, right? So all this stuff we discussed with the kids ahead of time. And then we're off Saturday and Sunday for the players. And of course, the coaches will be watching film and doing all the stuff that they do there. Okay, so.
I'll quickly ask a question, give you a little breather, have a drink of water. But
yeah, sure.
Kind of relevant to this point, but later as well. What percentage of your senior team has more than 1 year of football experience? Like, how many were playing maybe Bantam or even grade 10 junior?
Yeah, well, good question. Most of them, right? Most of them. And it's funny, like, when I started playing football, my first year playing football was grade 10. Never had played before. And I was super fortunate, like, to play at U of A and had really, I attended training camp with the Rough Riders and played in a preseason game. And that was cool. I'm proud of that, right? But I think I'm kind of in some weird way, a rarity. You really don't see that happen very often anymore, where kids are, playing post-secondary after not playing football before high school. So it obviously does happen. And I wish we had more kids that came in having never played football. But it's very few. I don't know if I could put a percentage on it. Like, we were last year had our Will linebacker, team captain, great kid. And like, he started at Will linebacker all year and played in a provincial final. He never had played football before high school. So he played junior football in grade 10. And then grade 11, he was on our senior football team, didn't play a ton, mostly special teams. And then he grew into his role. In 2017, same thing, our starting middle linebacker, he had never played high school football, same thing, junior, senior. And those kids are awesome. Like I take so much pride in being a part of their journey. But we are at a school where if you haven't played some football before, the learning curve is pretty steep, right? So you're probably going to be doing a junior football for a year, which is great. We've got a junior program we're super, super proud of. And then hopefully you're playing senior and kind of getting up to speed there. And then by grade 12, maybe having a bigger role. So
how would you maybe say there's a lot of schools who are not in your same situation, who have, this example who sent me a private message was they have 10 kids out of 40 who've maybe played before, so they have 75%. So maybe your junior practice planning, whether you talk about it now or a little bit later, how different is your practice plans for your junior teams?
Well, I'm a firm believer in like fundamentals are so important. And that's like, no kidding, coach, like common sense, but it really is true. And I follow tons of different coaches on Twitter and like love to see different examples of what they're doing in NCAA and NFL. And like they're doing hat reads every single day for their linebackers in every single NFL and NCAA program, out there. Right. So hat reads are something that, it seems kind of we're walking through hat reads and we're jogging through hat reads, but it's at every single level because it's important. So it takes more time. I remember being in high school and like learning the game as I was going, and you're going to make way more mistakes. And it's tough, but at the same time, I think that's the great joy of coaching kids is you get to have that challenge and that journey of working with kids that don't know the game. And it's such a great game to teach. And there's so many cool examples of, there's so many cool examples you can give to help kids out. So I don't know if it's a great answer, like it's at a different place than we're at, but I went to high school that most kids at FX hadn't played football before. And we just loved playing football and we learned as we went. So that's what I would say to that. Good, Taylor?
Yep, good to go. Continue on.
Okay, right on. So you guys know like training camp's going to look a little bit different. So I'll just pull this one up. We're revamping what we're doing in training camp now because spring camp has been lost. So I think those schools down in Calgary are going to have an advantage because they're used to not having as much spring camp, but that's a story for a different day. So we'll figure it out as everybody else is working through this COVID stuff. And like at training camp, we spend way more time on individual. We spend way more time on tackling circuits, ball security stuff. We'll do special teams drills more so in training camp than we do during the season. Okay. And, I try to just add, like, we've got a competition period here called Will to Win. I'll just put the kids' initials in here because it helps us organize it. Right. So, we'll have just the kids and I know who these kids are. And then we say, okay, we got, Bronson versus Daniel and Joe. And then so we know, and that just putting little things like that in your practice plan, I think helps. And that's something when I first started coaching, my practice plan was like, not that like this is amazing, but my practice plan before was like just bad. And I put a lot of time into just trying to figure out what we're doing with it. So I think you got to figure out what works best for you. Right. And I always think, okay, well, yeah, we've got 6 volunteer coaches, and we've got enough guys that we can have an offensive line group and a defensive line group. But what would you do if you've only got 8 linemen? And what would you do if, half your DBs also played receiver? Well, maybe you would have you got your one line coach, and you've got one day where you focus on receiver stuff and one day where you focus on DB stuff. And there are so many possible limitations out there. But you guys have been doing it for long enough to kind of, hopefully this sparks some ideas of what you can do. Okay. So that's just to give you a sense of training camp and how some of the training camp practices might be a little bit different from your in season. This will be our second practice on the 17th, and you can see it's a little bit shorter, like it's just 1 hour long, but we want to be able to get out there and do that second practice there. And then I always like doing stuff like this in training camp. Like we'll do a spelling bee, and because I always want it to be fun, right? Like, and hopefully everybody's in it for the same reason, to give back to kids, but it should be fun. And so for a spelling bee, just an idea, we'll do all a grade 10 team, a grade 11 team, and a grade 12 team. And then we'll stand up we'll select one kid from grade 10, one from 11, and one from 12, and we'll do the spelling bee. And like they're like grade 8 level words or grade 5 level words. So it's embarrassing if you get them wrong, right? And so it's just kind of a little fun thing that we'll do to build some laughs into practice at the end. And the coaches will kind of give a word, and the kid has to spell it out, and they can't get any help. So it's a fun one. And then, okay, so here's the second day of training camp, right? Just all the things here, right? We've got everything listed. So we've got a special teams drill here, line release, and what we'll have done is pre-practice, we'll have shown the kids, okay? I don't have a video for that one. I've just kind of drawn it up. But we'll explain to the kids that are doing the special team circuit, this is line release, and this one's dead man walking. So I've gone through and hyperlinked stuff, and then we can just see, hey, okay, this is the drill that we want to be able to do. And can you imagine me or another coach out there trying to explain this to the kids, and we're trying to move fast with urgency? Like it just wouldn't go, right? So really easy to show the kids. And like you said, Taylor, that's a great idea. Have it on a tablet and show the kids right before. I think that's a terrific idea. So let me get these out of the way here. Taylor, just stop me if you got questions or anything. I'm happy to stop there. Okay. So conscious of the time here, and I know that this isn't supposed to be all night long. So training camp special teams install. I think this is something we're going to try this year. I haven't really done it like this before, but we're going to give it a go this year. So as you can see, we've kind of got our dates listed here. This is week 1, this is week 2, and then this is going to be week 3. And like on the first day, the 17th, we're not going to screw around with special teams on day 1, but day 2, okay, pre-practice, we're going to have a punt return meeting. And then we're also going to have a kickoff return meeting and a field goal meeting. So 3 separate meetings, just quick little intro meetings. And then we're going to have a punt return jog through, kickoff return jog through pre-practice. And then during the practices, we're going to get into those actual meetings. The one thing that I always think about special teams is it is a teaching period. And we could do offense and defense, and of course those are teaching periods, but typically you spend more time on the O and the D and less on special teams. So we're going to try to commit to doing a little bit more teaching in the classroom on special teams, and then see if we can get a jog through period in training camp with special teams. And then when we get to the special teams period of practice, we just want to be go, 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 because again, and this is not our coach's fault. It's, what are we going to do? We're going to roll out to practice and say, okay, kickoff return, boys, give her hell and let's get her done. Like that. No, there's things that need to be explained. We got to talk about the depth and everything. And so that's an improvement we're trying to make this year. And that's just part of this install schedule here. So I'm hoping that if we follow this all the way through, we're going to feel really prepared on the special teams front. Okay, this one's a little bit out of date, but the one thing that, I always think about, we'd have special teams and Coach Duguid's our O-line coach, and he's just known forever. Not a lot of O-linemen are on special teams, so he would always take that special teams plan, and I commend him for it, and he would have his O-linemen doing stuff. And then maybe we've got like 2 linebackers and 2 DBs and a handful of receivers that aren't doing anything on special teams. And they're, sitting, or not sitting, but they're on the sideline and they're not really doing anything. And so that always pissed me off. So we decided, okay, well, let's make sure everybody's busy, because that's always a good time during special teams. Let's make sure we're busy being productive. So like I said, this is a little bit out of date, but if I'm looking at my punt team, we're going to have linebackers, defensive ends, DBs, and running backs. The coaches that'll do it are the linebackers and DB coaches. The position groups that are free are going to be, receiver, O-line, quarterback, interior defensive lineman. So we want, for example, the quarterbacks and the receivers, they're doing routes on air. And then maybe we're doing O-line versus interior D-line, doing some stuff there. Like, we want to be productive. So like I said, this one's a little bit out of date, but I hope you get the sense of special teams is not like a time for me to just put your feet up on the sideline and do nothing. I think we want to be, again, efficient and productive during special teams time. But we also want everybody that's not involved to be super engaged in whatever they're doing too. Okay. So I showed you guys this link again, and I will, I'll show it to you. Just trying to think. I went through all of our games from last year and said, okay, how many punt returns do we have total? 6.5, right? All the way through. Just to kind of frame, sorry?
I don't think you talked about that much, but touch on it again, maybe.
Just wanted to frame for everybody, kind of our players moving forward. How many kickoff returns are we going to have a game? Well, last year it was, in 13 games, it was 42, right? So that's 3 and a bit a game. And just want to make sure that we're emphasizing to the kids, like, if you're on every single special team, you've got quite a few plays a game. And the one thing that, I don't know why it shocked me, but when I started coaching high school football, man, special teams is, the field position changes in special teams in high school are like immense, and can be such a game changer, just because it's not quite as consistent as, maybe the junior level or the post-secondary level. And I think it's like, you can make such a difference in special teams. I mean, it goes without saying, but in high school, I think could be a huge game changer. So just have done quite a bit of reflection on our special teams this off season. I think I got this from the University of Minnesota. They're looking, okay, can we win the turnover battle, win missed tackle battle, win explosive play battle, win the forced punt inside their 4? I mean, that's not really applicable for Canadian football, but you get the idea. So we've invested some time in special teams, and I think you want to see that come through in an organized fashion during your practices. So what we're going to do in training camp is we'll have, kickoff lanes on the first day, and the kids will know what to do. And it says, we got to have 16 guys to do this drill. Everybody's going to, be working in unison, 4 lanes. And I mean, you can see this picture isn't a beauty, but I could explain it to the kids in a meeting pre-practice, and that's what we would do. Then we'll do catch, punch, face. I don't have an example. I don't have the drill here, but I got, we'll just show the kids. Here's another thing you could do. If you can't catch, punch, and face, you could do the finesse ear hole, they call this, right? So this is from, looks like an SEC championship or something. You just show the kids, hey, look at this is an option. You could do this instead of trying to clean the guy's clock, because they're calling guys for that now. Okay, so as I just continue with this, I don't want to go too much into detail, but hopefully you get the sense. We've organized all of our special team stuff now so that we can say, hey, day 4, we're going these 2 drills. We show the kids, and then they visualized it one time before they go out to practice. And I think that's what we're aiming for there. Okay. So this is the unit leadership thing I talked about before. And it's been really, really good. And the thing that I love about it is the kids are like engaged in it, and they're taking ownership, which I think is terrific. So on Monday, we're going to have the quarterbacks and the running backs are getting together. They're just working on their mesh point and doing their different steps. Receivers are going to be doing some tennis ball hand-eye coordination. The O-line are getting together doing zone steps. The D-line, they've got a list of different things they're doing, linebackers, DBs, all the way through. Okay, Tuesday we're switching pre-practice. Quarterbacks and centers are working on their exchange out of under center, shotgun. And we might have like maybe 2 centers on the depth chart or whatever, but we might get a couple more guys over there. Just because you never know, right? Somebody busts a thumb or something. You want to have a few guys backing up. Running back, hand-eye, and ball security. We'll do some different drills that way. Receivers are doing some different things. O-line might be working on some of their pull game. D-line linebackers are going to both get on the sled and tackle a halo after. So you guys can see all the way through there. And then on Wednesday, our day 3, we just want our guys to do their pregame routine. So I don't know what it was this year. Like I'd be out there as a coach and watching our warm up on game day, and it was like ugly. I said we're probably not going to do too well if this is any indication. For whatever reason, it was just bad. We couldn't warm up, and so I was nervous a few times before games. But what we did halfway through the season, we said, screw it. On Wednesdays, you guys are just doing your pregame routine, and we're practicing our pregame routine, because I think you just want to have that sense of it being crisp and looking good. So we're committing to do that on Wednesday now. Okay. This one has taken some time, and listen, I think this has taken me probably 2 or 3 years to kind of refine, and I think I've got it at a place now that I really feel like it's going to be organized for our coaches and be super effective. So as you can tell, lots of the stuff here is like linked to a Twitter video. Okay, so these are all drills, and what we'll try to do now for our tackling circuits is they will go 2 or 3 circuits. Okay, so I might give our coaches and say, okay, we're doing the Patriots extend on a sled. So this is the drill that you're going to be doing today, Coach Hogan. And
I couldn't tell by the backside profile.
That's Matt Patricia talking when he was at the Patriots. But so anyway, the video is less important, but you can see it's all organized for our coaches to go through and look. So I might just take the copy it right here, for example. I'll send it to our coaches, and then they know, okay, day 1, we're going to be doing these 3 deals here. So that kind of, I call it a drill bank. Just has all sorts of different things, and you can see it's broken down too. Okay, what position is it best for? Well, if it's green, it's good for all of our guys to do. If it's white, it might just be a linebacker and a DB. We don't need our big interior D lineman doing it. So that's been something, like I said, has taken time, but I think it's been helpful for sure. And then I blocked out some of the names here just because we don't know who's making our team in the fall. But this is our cardio circuit groups. And this might be a little bit like obsessive compulsive or whatever, but I just want to have our guys in groups. So when we say, hey, listen, DBs are going to go do the battle ropes, then they know, who's in that group. And we've got 8 guys in that group. We try to get 8 guys in every group. And then, okay, we got the linebacker DB group. You're going to do core. They know who's in which group. And this is something we remind them of on day 1. And then we just shout it out on the field, and they're pretty good. Usually we end up with the appropriate amount of guys. There's always one guy standing there. I don't know what group I'm in. Well, we don't know either, buddy. So just find a group and let's get going. But hopefully you see we're trying to be organized on that front. Just a weekly checklist. Okay. Something I started doing a couple of years ago. And it was basically, I've got so many different clips and things, and I'm pulling all this stuff off Twitter, and it's like overwhelming to try to take all these ideas and try to put them into practice plans, right? So what I did is I reflected and said, hey, listen, we got to make sure that we're getting this stuff done every single week. So we have to have a quarterback contained period every single week. It's really important. We have to do sideline force out. We got to make sure our offense has time on air, 10 minutes every week. So what I'll do is I'll just copy all this, okay? And I'll say, we're playing LCI this week. So when I go to prep for LCI and build all the practice plans, I'll just do, got my sideline force out in, I'll just bold it. Okay, so that's on Monday. Maybe we're doing punt return on day 2. I'll just bold it. And then that way I can look at the end of the week of all the plans and say, hey, listen, we have accomplished everything that we need to. And as long as we follow our practice plans, we're going to be in good shape there. So this is something that's helped me be organized when I'm creating those plans. Okay, training camp schedule. This is kind of like, to me, something that helps us be organized, but I'm going to be able to give this to the kids and say, listen, on the 17th of August, we're doing testing. The SCAT tests for a concussion test will happen at 2. Get the bicep workout in while we're just kind of hanging out there for everybody else. Meetings are starting at 3, right? So you see the deal there, and we just want to put the time limits on. Sometimes you can imagine coaches, go overboard and talking. Well, no, we need them out by 4:45 so they can be on the practice field by 5. And I think stuff like this helps your volunteer coaches, and I think it's good for your players to see too, just so they can kind of visualize what their day's looking like. Okay, almost done here, guys, and thanks for tuning in, and I'm happy to answer questions after. But this is an example of what we'll do in pretty much every single day of the year, but especially in training camp. So you can see we've got our little message here for training camp, and I'll use the 18th as an example. So everybody will be in, and we're going to talk about growth mindset on the 18th. And what does that mean? Okay, so we'll go to that one. And then I'm going to show them the practice plan. We got 2 practices on that day. A basic reminder, bring your permission forms in, who's doing concussion testing or who hasn't done it, fee payment, all that stuff. Who's on locker room cleanup? Leaders lead, right? Just talking about that message, and you don't have to be a team captain to be a leader. Okay, what are the special team drills we're doing? What's the special team depth chart? What are the special teams meetings? Okay, well, some guys are doing their SCAT tests. We're doing the bicep workout. Then we'll talk about how are we setting up the hitch drill. And then we've got O&D meetings to follow. So as you can imagine, there is a ton of information here. And kids might not remember a lick of it, but there are some kids that need this. And I look at it from the standpoint of, being an educator. How do you differentiate for all your kids learning? And I think that there's some kids that they eat this stuff up and they want to see a video example. There's other kids that they just want to get out on the field and they'll watch the guy in front of them do it, and then they'll mimic it, right? So there's so many different ways, and we want to try to cater to as many of those learning possibilities as possible. So, hey, listen, I've done tons of talking, and this is kind of my last deal here. Our practice planning philosophy, and hopefully it's come through a little bit, we want to learn from lots of reps. We want to give our kids as many reps as possible and let them learn from making mistakes and let them learn from having success and taking risks and whatever it may be. We do not waste time. I hate that. And I think that if we can address things with our players after practice, that's the best thing. There are going to be times where, a kid is screwing something up or it's not clear. And you do need to spend time with them during practice, but it's not ideal. And one thing that I hope that I can, help with our coaches is say, listen, I'm going to try to make this thing as crystal clear as possible so that it can move as efficiently as possible, because let's be honest, football, once the bullets start flying, it's not the way you've drawn it up really ever. But we want it to be as close to that as possible. Kids are different nowadays, and it wasn't too long ago that I played. I just think kids want to know why they're doing stuff. So if you're doing something and there's no reason for it, like you shouldn't be doing it. And if you're doing drills that aren't showing up during your game, you shouldn't be doing them. So when I look at all of our tackling drills, like if we're doing a tackling drill and a kid has never ever made a tackle that way in any of our games, well, it's a bad drill for us. So two things there. I think you need to explain why you're doing stuff to kids. And they got to know that there's a reason behind it. It's not like kids are, questioning what you're doing, but I do just think you're going to get more out of them if they know why they're doing something. And to me, been a game changer. You got to show the kids the drills and meetings. I really believe in that. And like Taylor said, you could bring a tablet out to practice, or you could send it out, earlier in the day and say, hey, we're doing this drill today, boys. Just a reminder, here's a quick video of it. The kids like to see it too, right? You get, Pete Carroll in the background and the Seahawks are doing it. Like, I think kids enjoy that aspect of it as well. So there's my contact information. And I know from being online for the other two sessions, like I'll stick around and I'll answer questions or whatever. But thanks so much for tuning in, and good luck with whatever the fall season holds here. Fingers crossed that everything gets started, and hopefully you and your family stay safe here as we continue on. So thanks again.
Thank you very much, Coach Greenslade. What we'll do here, ladies and gentlemen, we'll take some questions. We'll open up the floor a little bit. I have a few questions to ask, but before we lose everybody, I just want to talk about tomorrow night. We are doing a football safety course. Our athletic therapist, Nicole McLean, will be teaching it or instructing, presenting. I am totally okay if you guys share the link I send tomorrow with your athletic therapist, even some of your students who may help your high school team, even a parent or two who may help your minor teams. Share the link, spread the word. I'll be sending it sometime tomorrow midday, but that's going to be tomorrow 7 o'clock. And then on Thursday is our community sport minor coaches on Thursday night, and it's going to be 3 to 4 hours. It's an actual NCCP registered program. It's not included in this $80 series. So it's for minor coaches. You need to have it if you're a head coach, and also if you're assistants as well. So reach out to me via email if you have questions on that on Thursday night. Couple quick questions, Tyler. One question was, do you recommend sharing practice plans on Team Snap for minor teams? I can answer that. The more you can tell the players ahead of time, the better. The more they can prepare. Even if 10% of the kids actually look at it, the more you can send ahead of time, I think the better, whether you're using Team Snap, whether you're using Huddle, whether you're using the new Football Canada mobile app. I think more the better. But Tyler, your comments on that?
Yeah, we don't share the practice plan with the kids ahead of time. We usually just share it with the coaches. I'll be honest, I don't know how many of our kids would care to look at the practice plan ahead of time. But so that's where we're at with it.
Okay, another question. I will be sharing this, so I did record it, and I'll be sharing it on Google Drive again, as long as, and some of Tyler's presentation, he did kind of hop through between 6 or 7 documents, but his main PowerPoint he'll share with me, right, Coach?
Yeah, you bet.
I should ask ahead of time. But a question about social media. Do you do any education or training to your players on handling their own personal social media accounts?
Yeah, we have before. I'm shaking my head because, kids are, I've been dragged into some really goofy conversations with, so-and-so did this and so-and-so did that. And I think it is important to talk to kids about what's appropriate. And I don't even know, I'm relatively young. I don't know half the things that kids are doing on social media and all the different things anymore. It's changing all the time, right? But that is so important. And the world is so much smaller nowadays with everybody's got access to everything, and social media has been a big part of that. So I think it's so important to talk to kids about being appropriate on there. Unfortunately, they're not all angels and they make mistakes, but it's a good topic for sure. It's something that we talk about during training camp, for sure. Yeah.
Okay, somebody had asked about safe contact and when Football Alberta will be putting it on. We can't really do it in this platform as much because half of it is supposed to be on field going through drills and more of a technical side. But the thought right now is as we get closer to being allowed to play football, we'll probably do the classroom session probably through Zoom for everybody within Alberta. And then we'll have like regional based on field, instead of a 4-hour night, it might just be an hour and a half night where we have a group in Edmonton, Calgary, Red Deer, and maybe some of the larger centers around. But at this point, no scheduled safe contact, but we will look at it as we get a little bit closer. Feel free to turn your cameras on if you guys want to ask Tyler. You can his email's there. You can stop sharing your screen if you want.
Okay.
Question about your junior team there, Tyler, if you can see it. Does your junior program follow the same kind of preparation?
Yeah. Good question. They do for sure. And I share all of my practice plans with Coach Russ and Coach John, who do our junior program as the in-school coaches. It probably mirrors a little bit more of the one comment about, well, what if only 10 of your kids have played football before? Because that's our junior team's a little bit closer to that. So I love to see continuity between junior and senior, and that's something we've worked towards, especially the last couple of years. It's never going to be total lock and step, but yeah, we're always working towards that.
Okay, and sorry, Robert, there. He was asking more. I wanted to talk about it anyways because I've received a lot of emails about safe contact. What kind of safe contact implementation do you guys do within your team practices?
Yeah, well, that's been a big one. And so typically what we'll do is we'll start off with like the little progression of we're tackling from our knees and doing the like all that stuff. I've got the progression listed somewhere. I actually really like the safe contact stuff to a point. Like it's, I guess I got to be careful how I say this, Taylor. No, it is good. I like the hawk tackling, like the rugby tackling as well. And I think they mirror each other pretty closely. So we've kind of mixed both of those things together. I mean, everybody knows in training camp, I think you got to start slow and kind of make sure the kids are getting comfortable back into contact. And yeah, like I remember coming from university thinking, and I was dumb and naive and still am in a lot of ways, but I was like, well, we're going to tackle once a week at practice. And we got lit up by Spruce Grove, like couldn't tackle a beach ball. And I remember thinking, we're never not tackling every single day ever again. And, but the thing about tackling, especially as the season progresses on, that we really try to focus on is like, we want to connect our eyes and our feet. And it doesn't have to be a big jarring blow every time. Let's just get our eyes and feet to the right spots and make sure that that's all connected. And we've had, pretty good success with that. So,
do you have any specific lifting targets for position for your entire program, junior, senior guys?
Oh, no, we don't. That's a good question, though. I was actually thinking about that last week. I used to have this great little outline when I was in high school of just kind of, okay, a national champion linebacker does this, starting running back does this. I think it was like a U of A graphic or something. So I'm actually going to try to find it because it's a great motivational thing. And but no, if anybody has something like that, I'd love to get my paws on it.
Are there any other questions? If anybody wants to just hop on and talk to Coach, what do you do for testing? What kind of physical testing do you guys do?
Yeah. So we've done 40-yard dash. We'll do like they call it the T-test. We'll do broad jump, vertical jump. We've done bench press. We've done a push-up test. I mean, it's always so tough, right? We had a kid a couple of years ago, Ty Duguid, like he was bench pressing like tons and tons of weight, and then you get kids that can't do, they're not doing very much weight. So I think that we try to strike a healthy balance there of, well, maybe push-ups is the best test to do, but like if you can do 75 push-ups in football, I don't know if that is really an appropriate test. So testing could be probably its own conversation, but we've done a lot of those jumping ones and some of the combine drills that you'd see at like the NFL combine or whatever. So yeah.
We'll give it a few minutes, see if there's any other questions before we close it down.
Yeah, for sure. I've got.
I really liked your special teams when Scotty's coming on. He's our honorary celebrity question every time. I appreciate it.
Right on.
I really liked your special teams. Your instead of sitting on the sidelines, what are those other 25, 30 athletes doing? I'm going to take that back. We always scramble and try to find something to do, but
yeah,
if you know what special teams you're working on, if you know you're doing punt cover, then you know who's not on punt cover. So I really took that away, and I hope each coach took 2 or 3 of Tyler's and can implement it on their team, and it was a successful hour and a half. So Scotty, what do you got?
Sure.
I'm kind of in the boat where I have like 4 or 5 coaches and maybe 30 kids on a good day. Your old focus, defocus, that's just for Indy on those days, or do your like team periods match that as well? You probably go O team and D team most days.
Yeah. So like for example, well, Sony Scott, you coached him. So he was for those that wouldn't know, Sony was a receiver, a slot back for us this year, and also a free safety. So what would happen is, like I explained, on the one day he would do Indy with the DBs and another day with the receivers. And I know there's 3 days in the week, so usually we would just kind of say, okay, you're mostly a slot back. You'll go with the offense most of the time. But yeah, what we would do, Scott, is basically Sony would run with the offense for team, and then we would flip it and go D team after, just because usually on those day 2 and 3 we're doing like the scout cards of the other team. So the thing you got to just be careful about there, I find, is like we've had some linemen going both ways, and just those, Scott, from playing, like it's a different battle in the trenches. And I remember one year we had some guys would know the name Riley Safransky. He was playing for us at Ainley, and he's at U of A now, great kid. And he got injured before a playoff game. We were playing the Notre Dame Cougars from Red Deer, and they beat us in the ASAA quarterfinal. So anyway, Riley got hurt the week before that game, and it's like losing 2 starters. So I think you're kind of handcuffed, like especially with linemen, you sort of have to, feels like, have 2-way guys. We really try not to, but the reality is like you're probably going to. But so then we started looking at, well, how do we save these guys some wear and tear? But football's football; it's a violent sport, and guys are going to get banged up, right? So, yeah.
Cool. Looking good, Ty.
Yeah, you too, Scotty. Good to see you, man.
Thank you, buddy. Great job tonight.
Once again, tomorrow night, feel free to share the link with anybody and everybody in terms of football safety. And our athletic therapist is very experienced, works with Team Alberta and also the Edmonton Wildcats for a long time. So Nicole McLean tomorrow night. Tune in if you choose. If any other last questions, I don't see anything on the chat. If anybody wants to pop up and talk to Coach Greenslade, if not, we'll wrap it up right away.
Yeah, thanks again, Taylor. It was a pleasure to be on, and I'll talk to you tomorrow about how to get the slides or whatever and share it with people. And yeah,
just use PDF it or something and just fire it off to me.
Yeah, for sure.
We don't need all the other bonus slides and stuff. That would be way too much work. They can watch the actual recording of this too. So
yeah, for sure.
Okay. Good night, everybody. Thank you very much.
Thanks.